This interview contains sensitive subject matter that may be hard for some listeners to hear. As we talk about domestic violence and abuse, the language we use primarily puts women in the role of the victim. We are aware that regardless of gender, anyone can be the victim of abuse. If you find yourself in an abusive situation, please call the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 and know that you are not alone.
Welcome to Show Me the Mommy, the podcast where we explore the stories of local moms, business owners, and fascinating individuals in Southeast Missouri. We are your hosts, Laura,
Rory, and Kelly.
Join us as we engage in conversations that cover a variety of topics, from parenting to entrepreneurship and everything in between. This is Show Me the Mommy. Let's dive in with our next guest, Jessica Hill, the Executive Director of the Safehouse of Southeast Missouri. The Safehouse helps anyone who has experienced dating violence, domestic violence, sexual violence, or stalking. They provide shelter, counseling, case management, court advocacy, and support groups. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hey, Jessica, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
We're so happy that you're here. I know a lot of people are going to be really, really anxious to hear what you have to say, and I think our topic affects a lot more people than we realize.
You are definitely correct about that, yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about the Safe House and where is the Safe House located?
So the Safe House was started here in Cape Girardeau in 1991. We're an independent nonprofit, so we're totally supported by our community right here in Southeast Missouri. Our primary service area is Cape Girardeau County, Bollinger County, and Scott County. But we will accept clients from anywhere who can, if they need to come here. Maybe where they live now isn't a safe place for them, and so they need to start over in a brand new community. But the vast majority, probably about 90% of our clients, come from right here in our 3-county area. We serve about 500 adults and children a year.
Wow.
So
Wow.
That number is surprising to folks. And then when they find out that there's so many more people who are probably experiencing domestic violence, who haven't reached out for help yet and haven't felt like it was a safe option for them to try to get away from their situation, there's many more people that we still need to reach.
Absolutely.
So we do have a shelter. We have a 32-bed shelter here in Cape Girardeau. That is in a confidential location. But we also have an outreach office and a thrift store, and those are open to the public. And we serve about 350 non-residential clients a year through our outreach office. We're really excited because our outreach office and our thrift shop are moving. So as of August 25th is our grand opening, and we are going to be at 2350 Independence. So we're moving
Exciting.
to more offices, more services, and a bigger thrift shop as well.
Good.
Wow. And does a person have to meet a certain criteria for the Safe House?
So that's a great question. A lot of people assume that they have to go to the police first. You actually do not. Excuse me.
Good.
We do
You
that all the
actually
time.
do not have to do that. You can self-report that you have had an experience that, again, is either dating violence, sexual violence, or domestic violence, or stalking. And we will provide services, whatever that the case might be. If you are in a dangerous place and you do need to get away from your abuser to the point where they cannot find you, we'll bring you into our shelter. But if you are leaving a situation and you have a safe place to stay, or perhaps your abuser went to prison or jail or something like that, then we might be able to provide you with non-residential services. And even after you stay in our shelter, which is about a 45-day length of stay typically, although we do not have a limit, so sometimes people stay several more months than that, we want to continue to provide services. So oftentimes people will transition from being a residential client to a non-residential client. They still come into our outreach office, receive counseling, and participate in our support groups.
Okay.
Nice. So is there any warning signs that somebody could see at the beginning of a relationship that would maybe tell them this is possibly abuse?
Yes, absolutely. We talk about red flags all the time. And so some of the major red flags is that a person comes on really, really strong right at the beginning. You know, you're the love of my life within the first 2 weeks, right? On the second date, they want to get married, those kinds of things. Can be a red flag. It's important to note that several of these together is probably, some...
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Sometimes one will sound harmless on its own and can be harmless, but if you see a pattern developing of these red flags. Another one, though, is extreme jealousy. So if you find that your partner wants to know where you are all the time, they want to, they're suspicious of every phone call you receive. If you find that they are checking up on you, like did they drive by your work to make sure you're there? That's not healthy. That's that's a red flag. If they begin to try to control you and isolate you, those are really dangerous. So we see people who they try to get control of their money or help or make it to where they don't have access to their money. They try to get them to quit working so that they'll be financially dependent on the abuser. They try to make it to where you can't hang out with your friends or even your family, and try to separate you and isolate you from everyone else that might be a support to you, so that you're totally dependent on the abuser. So when you begin to see things like that, really trying to exert power and control over you in a really unhealthy way, it's probably time to end that relationship.
So abuse isn't always just physical, right?
That is so true. And we help people who've experienced a wide variety of abuse. So physical abuses can honestly be sort of like the end of a spectrum. So the beginning of a spectrum is things like mental abuse and emotional abuse and calling you names and making you feel bad about yourself and trying to ruin your self-esteem and those kinds of things. And then it can go to, the verbal abuse where it's yelling and, calling you names and everything's a fight and those kinds of things. And then it can go to the beginnings of physical abuse where it's pushing and shoving and those, sort of beginnings of abuse, and then it just escalates from there. So the two most dangerous things for a person in a relationship that has become physically abusive is if you are choked. So choking is a sign that lethality is coming. And then the second one is if they have a gun. So if the presence of a gun in the home of an abusive situation increases the likelihood that you'll be killed by like 500%.
Wow.
So it's very scary. So if you have somebody who has reached that level of abusiveness and they have a gun, it's very dangerous. We would really like for you to reach out to us so we can talk about options.
Wow. It can often be very difficult to try to leave a situation like that. So what would a person do, like, as the first steps to prepare to leave safely?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. So we talk about safety planning is exactly what we call it, because it can be a very dangerous time when you are leaving. And so there's a lot of planning that you can do, and we can help people plan. If they want to call our hotline, which is 573-651-1614, or reach out to us on our website, or we have a text line as well. And there's lots of ways to reach out to us. And we can help you plan. Like, you don't even, sometimes for folks, it's like a 2 or 3 month process, right, just the plan to leave is. But some things that you really want to think about, one is a plan for your children, and you need to involve your children's school or their daycare or wherever they go during the day. They need to be involved in your plan. They need to be aware of what you're doing. And then you need to have all your documents, as many documents as you can. So do you have your Social Security card? Do you have your driver's license, your birth certificate? We can help people replace those. That's a big part of what we do. But if you have those things with you, it just makes it easier. Also, if you can save a little cash is helpful. Again, if you come into our shelter, we're going to provide you with all the food, transportation. We're really going to come around you and help you with those things, with those financial needs right in the beginning. But anything that you can do to kind of make those plans is really helpful. So it's important that you have safe people who know what your situation is and can help you if in an emergency. There are apps that you can download that all you have to do is trigger the app, and it will send a message to your safe contacts letting them know that something's wrong, that they should call the police or whatever the case might be. Even to the point of, like, where are the safest places in your house? Where are the best exits in your house? Things like that, so that you can be prepared. And then, we will work with you, as well as our local law enforcement will work with you to make a safe exit. We have exited people out of stores. We have exited people out of doctor's offices. We will go to where you are.
Yeah, because if they're that, wanting to know where you're at and everything, then that plan is so important.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we do plan with people in advance and ensure that transition into our shelter is a safe one. And then we also work with people to get an order of protection. So you might think of that as a restraining order. But that is a civil order, so you're not filing charges against someone, because sometimes that is a whole nother thought process. Do you really want it? Because a lot of times what people want is they just want them to leave them alone, right? They don't necessarily want them to go to jail. But, in some cases that's going to happen. But but an ex parte order of protection is just an emergency order that gives you 2 weeks to say you can't have any contact with me at all. You can put your children on the order, you can put your pets on the order, and then 2 weeks later you go back and the judge will decide whether that will be a permanent order for a longer period of time, and that time varies. And so that is another really important safety step. And because then if that ex parte is violated, even just a text message can violate an ex parte. If that happens, then you have more resources at your disposal in terms of keeping you safe.
I know a lot of women stay in the hopes that their partner will change to the person they first met when they first started dating. What advice do you have for them with the women that hopes that their partners will change?
Yeah, that is definitely the case, because every relationship that ends in domestic violence started in a loving relationship, and so to see a person change or to see sort of like their true colors come out or whatever the case may be can be really hard to accept, and we understand that for sure. And sometimes people they leave and then they miss them or the good things that they experienced with them. So we talk a lot about the fact that you don't deserve abuse. Nothing you do causes abuse. This is all in the decision and the choices that the abuser is making. There are programs for abusers if they want to change. They can either pursue like individual counseling and that kind of thing, or we have a batterer's intervention program, and it's a 26-week program that we are certified through the Office of Missouri Probation and Parole to administer. And so one of our staff members is the facilitator for that. And we go through a curriculum that leads them through understanding that this behavior is not right, it's not normal, it's not acceptable, and this is how you change it. But the goal of that is not reunification. It's that relationships in the future will be healthier. Also, we don't do marriage counseling because that is coming from the perspective of two healthy people who are non-abusive but have other issues in their relationship. So we do not recommend that at all. So it is very difficult to cut ties with someone that you really care about. And in the work that we do, we focus on the future. And so,
Is it hard to accept that you're in an abusive relationship? Do you find that?
Yes, it's very difficult to accept. And so one of the brochures that is called "Am I Being Abused?"
Yeah.
And sometimes we have people who will call our hotline or talk to one of our counselors, and sometimes they just need to ask, is this okay? Like this is what happened, and I don't have a good feeling about it, but I'm just not sure, because literally it was not physical, but it just didn't feel right or healthy. And that's something that we will help people go through and just try to determine is where should I go from here? Is this a relationship that can be different, or do I need to exit this relationship?
I think we tend to normalize things a lot in our lives, especially if they happen over a slow amount of time.
Right.
So if somebody is completely isolated, they've got them disconnected from everyone, how do they even know to reach out?
Well, that's one of the things that we really work on is actually opportunities like this to share. We're just anything that we can do to try to get out there.
Yeah.
So we do work with our local law enforcement. We work with all the local other nonprofits in our community, and sometimes someone will come and they, maybe what they're seeking at the time is like help paying their rent, but in addition to that, they also need our help. And so we have wonderful partners who will refer people to us. We work with the medical community, and I don't know if you've been to a doctor's appointment recently, they may ask you if you're safe in your home. And we actually can't divulge all the details, but we have something in place that we work with all the medical offices in our community of how they get that person to us. And so, but we also do things like we go to every community event, set up our booth. We're just trying to raise that awareness. And the other thing that we do is we do focus groups with our clients a couple times a year and ask them, just sort of like about their experience and what can we do better to help serve them and those kinds of things. And one of the things we ask them is, how did you find us? And these are the answers they give us. I came from the hospital. I met our court advocate at the courthouse, or these. But one lady said, I Googled, I want to be safe in Cape Girardeau.
Oh,
Wow.
So Safehouse came up and she called us and came
Wow.
to shelter. So we're trying to make sure we have no stone unturned
Yeah.
in terms of that kind of thing.
So, Jessica, going back to how abusers isolate their victims, what if someone is in a position to where they have no money, they don't have a car, they don't have a job, they've been isolated from all of their friends and family? How can they take that step? What does that look like for them?
Right. So I would say about 75% of our clients who come into our shelter have no income when they come. And so that's not that daunting prospect to us. We want to help with that, and we know the resources that are available. So we'll do things right away, like, first of all, make sure you do have all your documents, because you can't get services or apply for benefit programs or get a job without those things. So we do that right away. And then we start looking at, what work have you done in the past? What work would you like to do? We have a case manager who specializes in employment. And so she'll do things like help you put together a resume, help you apply for jobs online. We'll help you get outfitted, to go to interviews through our thrift shop and those kinds of things. And so, we find that within the first couple of weeks, generally speaking, a person, we'll see them get a job. And so
Wow,
That's
then we have
amazing.
That is so amazing.
Then we have another case manager who specializes in budgeting and financial literacy. And so they will go through and talk about saving and, and how to budget your money and those kinds of things. And because you're at our shelter and you're not paying rent right then, it's an opportunity to save. A lot of times that will be a time when people will save for a car or get a car fixed, or, whatever the case might be, repairs made. And so, we just sort of work through this step by step with people. And when we feel like they're, when they feel like, because it's led by the client, when they feel like they're ready, we know that they're going to be safe, and then that they're going to be sustainable. Then we have somebody who works with housing, and they help try to find them housing assistance programs, affordable housing, and that kind of thing. So we also have a program that's a transitional housing program, and so we're able to assist clients who meet certain criteria established by HUD that then we can help them with rent for a year after they go through our programs for survivors of domestic violence.
What about the kids? Is there any special programs for them?
Yes. So about half of our clients come in with their children, and so that is definitely a big part of our program. We have clients who come in to us expecting. They go have their baby. They bring their baby back to the shelter with them, and then they'll be with us, for usually at that point another 8 weeks or so, just to that newborn phase and recovery phase for the mom and that kind of thing. And so we have child therapy that we provide. So what we do is if there were children in the home who witnessed the abuse, then we will get them into therapy so that they can work through those experiences. If the child themselves has been abused, which is a whole nother, child abuse is a whole nother dynamic from domestic violence, because domestic violence is about power and control, and it's easier to control a child. And so you'll see people who are abusive to their partner and were not abusive to their child, except for exposing them to that negative situation. So if the child, though, has been abused, we work with CMO NASV, the Network Against Sexual Violence, and they are the child advocacy center in our community that helps with child abuse. And that's a whole nother process that involves like a forensic interview and those kinds of things. So anyway, but we provide, special programs for our kids. And we work really closely with all the schools to ensure that the kids' needs are met in terms of where they go to school. And, that's a big part of it. Another big part of it is that a lot of our clients have been separated from their children. Either they're in children's division custody, like foster care, or they've got a kinship placement, or they're with a family member. Sometimes, that's a choice that a mom will make to make sure their kids are out of that unsafe situation, until they can extricate themselves. And so we also work a lot on reunification, because, when we do goal setting with our clients, that'll be their number one goal. And totally understandably, I want my kids back. And so we work a lot on reunification, and it's exciting because sometimes they'll start to get like supervised visits, and then, they get to come and spend the weekend at the shelter with their mom. And then, they get to come back. And so all those things are really neat and so positive that we can help make those things happen.
That would be my biggest. I mean, I think if I was in a situation like that, worrying about my child, and I've heard other women say, before that they would leave somebody, but they couldn't financially do it on their own.
Right, yeah. And that's really where the Safe House comes to play, because I think a lot of people are thinking about trying to do it on their own. They know they wouldn't be able to pay that rent. They know they wouldn't be able to do it. And if they've been not working, and so then they also need childcare, and so trying to get that established, it's just too much.
Yeah.
So, if you can come into the shelter and stay with us and just sort of get stabilized in all those different areas, and work with our counselors and our court advocates and our case managers to work out through all those different phases of starting over, and we do help with at least 2 weeks of childcare for someone. So there's a gap between when you get a job and when the Missouri child care subsidy kicks in, and so we cover that. We bridge that gap.
Nice.
Okay.
So yeah.
What type of services do you offer when people don't need the shelter?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So our outreach office, where we help folks who are non-residential, we have a full-time counselor just for non-residential clients. We have a full-time case manager just for residential clients. One of the other things that case manager does for a whole agency is help with people who need medical care, because of course we have some people who come to us with injuries from their abuser, but we have a lot of people who have just deferred their care, so they haven't had an annual exam in who knows how long, or they really need to get to the dentist and things like that. And so she works with folks to help with those kinds of things as well. But we also offer at our outreach office, we have a food pantry, we have a hygiene closet, and you can come once a week and get those kinds of items, just again to try to support that and make your dollar go farther. And then we also have support groups. So our shelter has a support group that meets every week, but then we have one for our non-residential clients as well, and they meet at a local church in the evening during the week. And so we have that, and we provide childcare for that as well. So we've seen people, it's so important to know that you're not alone in this, and you're not the only one who's experienced this. And so to be able to have the support of others who've been through a similar experience is really valuable. And so that we find that people really gain a lot from just the opportunity to be supported by each other.
How does someone start the healing journey?
Well, that's the most important thing I think that people can do in terms of that is to give themselves time. And sometimes when people come into our shelter, they have been so traumatized and they're just so tired, and they just need to sleep and to be like quiet. Mm-hmm. And so we built the shelter that we have now in 2019, and we went from a 17-bed shelter to a 32-bed shelter. And we put in a lot of just spaces, like we have a sunroom, and we have a room that we call our quiet lounge, and just different places where people can just be quiet and sort of let themselves settle, and then begin to work with our counselors. And so a lot of that work is about self-esteem and self-worth. And there's a lot of educational materials that we can give to people. There's books on the topic that people can read if they struggled with codependency or something like that. Then they can get, there's those kinds of resources. But a lot of times it's literally just the time and the recognition that, I'm a person of value, and I didn't deserve to be abused, and I do deserve, a safe future. So that's something that we really try to, and we see it. I mean, you can just see it on a person from, like, their countenance just changes from when they first come to us. And then, you'll see them several weeks later, and it's just amazing that it's a transformation.
Wow. Have you ever seen The Maid on Netflix?
Yes.
Oh,
What do you think about
I
it?
love that show.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are hard for me to watch because, you work with it, and, we really focus on the positive, and so so it doesn't kind of get to us as much. But I felt like that was a really good representation of the reality of what that situation is like, and having children, and just all of that. And so I think it's really important that we have media like that, because like I said, our agency was established in 1991. That's not really that long ago. And before that, domestic violence was always sort of that was private. That was like that was in the home, and that we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so all that stigma is what we are working so hard to overcome, and to say to women, you don't deserve this, if in the case of because the vast majority of our victims are women, although we do serve anyone who's experienced abuse. But the victim didn't deserve it, and it is 100% the perpetrator's fault. And we have to have both of those messages.
I think back to where she's at the place getting services, and they were like, okay, so you're a victim of domestic violence. And she's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not. She's very much kind of coming to grips with that. So is that common? You see that a lot?
Yeah, especially if, depending on the type of abuse they've experienced. And domestic violence is the term we use all the time, but it doesn't have a ton of meaning, for people. So sometimes we talk about.
I take that back. She didn't think it was severe enough.
Yes, that's exactly what what we see. And so sometimes we talk about, interpersonal, and we try to use these other words, intimate partner abuse, but that's one aspect of abuse, but your abusers can be family members and other people as well, or dating partners and that kind of thing. So, we just try to be as universal as we can, and really trying to spread the message that it doesn't matter what type of relationship you were in, whether it was, 2 women, 2 men, man, woman. We serve individuals who are transgender every year. And so we just want to help. That's really what it is. We just want to help.
Can I touch on the stalking real quick? So is the stalking always somebody that they know, or could it just be somebody that? What is that?
In our case, it is someone that people know. I mean, you get into like famous people, well-known people.
Or anybody just becomes an infatuation. I mean, social media is very weird right now.
Right.
So I had an issue where, I was never stalked. I'm not going to say that, but I had to block this person and do that whole thing, and never met them or know them or anything. If that comes up and you're really worried, do you call the police, or would they call you? Like, what would you do?
Well, there's definitely stalking laws are developing now and getting better. And so there's more options now for like law enforcement to get involved. What we tend to focus on is safety. So maybe we need to get you a new phone. Maybe we need to, we work with tech safety a lot, and try to make sure that, people can't be followed, that there's, we have a local car dealership that will check if people have a concern, we'll check their cars to make sure that nothing's been attached to it, that will track them. So we just have a wonderfully supportive community.
It just goes so much deeper.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I remember sending his picture to everybody, being like, if I go missing,
this is
got me. Yeah, it was just odd. It was a very odd situation, and obviously nothing came of it, thank God. But
we would help people like file a police report and that kind of thing. And then it really becomes about like safety planning and making sure that you're not trackable. A lot of times it is going to be through your phone or some other kind of electronic means. And so, and stalking can be a component, like, your abuser can stalk you. But then we also have people who really don't have any kind of a relationship. Maybe they went on a date, or maybe they met someone at a party or something, and then suddenly this person's taking it way too far.
Yes. For sure.
So Vintage Now is a huge event that is held in Cape every year, and the proceeds go to the Safe House. Can you tell us a little bit about the event?
Yes. So this is our 14th year for Vintage Now Fashion Show. It's amazing. So Deb Mavers, who's the owner of Pastimes Antiques, she had an idea. She had a collection of vintage clothing, and she and her family had this idea to do a fashion show that would benefit a local organization that helped women. And so they reached out to the Safe House at that time, to the director, Linda Garner, and they developed this partnership, and it has grown and grown and grown.
It's huge now.
Ever since, yeah. So Deb's a member of our board, and when I talked about the quiet lounge in our shelter, we call that is the Vintage Now room in our shelter, and so they have outfitted that and supported that. And then every year, we know that there are people in the audience who need to hear our message about our services for people with domestic violence. And there are so many of the volunteers and the volunteer models and the volunteers in the performance cast and even the backstage crew, and they are, we talk about walking strong at Vintage Now, and they are walking for themselves or for a family member or someone they know and care about who's experienced domestic violence, because it's so prevalent that so many people have experienced or know someone who has. So this year, Vintage Now is Saturday, October 21st. It's at the Show Me Center. And the theme this year is Imagination, Ode to the Arts. And it's going to be amazing. I mean, every year. So
Every year is amazing.
If you know Deb, she is the most creative person you've ever met. And she, her mind is always working. And she's got 4 or 5 themes in her back pocket that she's kind of thinking about for the next year all the time. And so, it's a truly bigger and better every year. And so, we are just grateful to be a part of it, because so much of the growth of our agency and how we've been able to reach more people and provide them with more services is because of not only the funds raised by Vintage Now, but also the exposure that it provides to us. So, there's always going to be an aspect of our work that has to be secret and confidential and secure.
Absolutely.
But we, you don't want to be referred to as Cape Girardeau's best kept secret, which is, used to be the case. And so we want people to know that we're out there and that we know that we're here to help. And so, and also that domestic violence is in our community and we need to not stand for that. So Vintage Now gives us that opportunity, as well as, of course, raising funds that we, really need to support our agency, because all of our services are free. So
I'm really excited to get to bring my daughter this year. She's 7, and so I'm excited for her to get to hear the message and kind of grow up with that mindset that really our generation wasn't really brought up with.
It's so true. It was never talked about, when we were kids. So my daughter's 16, and she's been going to the show, for several years now. And I agree. I love to see people bring their kids, but I also love to see people bring their husbands and boyfriends as well too, because this is not just a women's issue. We
need everybody.
Men, to stand up and say, dude, that is not cool.
Right.
In fact, I think the men have sometimes the most bigger effect on other men.
100%.
What how somebody should act.
Right. And so, that's what we need. We need boldness in everyone to, when they see something, to be like, that's not cool, dude. Don't do that, And anyway, so Vintage Now, if you go to vintagenow.org, that's where our tickets are on sale. And, it just promises to be an amazing show. The music is fantastic. The entertainment is fantastic. Of course, the fashion is unbelievable. And I think that this year's theme really gives a great scope for the stylists to really spread their wings and, do amazing things. And we've tried to bring in a lot of other artistic components to it. So it'll be, visually it's going to be amazing. And it's just a fun night. It's just such a fun night. And we even have fun. We're there working it. The
energy is just, if you've never been, you have to go. I mean, it's just something you have to see to kind of go through.
Right.
So what about people, you said all your services are free. How much of that is coming from like state funding versus just people donating?
Yeah, so that's a great question. About 60% of our revenue comes from a grant. So we have federal, state, and local grants. We actually have about 16 grants that we're managing at any one time.
Wow.
So that's a big part of what we do.
Task.
Yeah, we have a grant application due on Friday. So it's the way that goes. But 30% of our operating budget actually comes from our thrift store.
Nice.
Cool. So a thrift store is amazing. Thrift store makes it possible for us to have so many outreach services.
Where is that at?
So this is the building that's moving.
Okay.
So it'll be at 2350 Independence. They open on August 21st.
Nice.
So it is next to La Luna and across from Orscheln's, which used to be Kmart. I found that not everybody connects with Orscheln's yet.
Yeah.
But old Kmart, they understand. So it's right down there. And
that's a big chunk.
Yes.
And I didn't even know it existed. So now go shop at thrift store.
Absolutely. Sure. And donate your items.
I was just going to ask that. Can you donate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we accept all kinds of clothing, men's, women's, children's, shoes, purses, books, and music and videos and those kinds of things, and then housewares. So, what happens is a client comes in with nothing so much of the time, and they're able to go over to the thrift shop and we give them vouchers, so for free they can resupply. Nice. We had a lady a few years ago who came to the Safe House shelter in the middle of the night wrapped in a sheet. And nothing. And so we got to start over there. So we keep pajamas and sweats and undergarments and things like that at the shelter all the time. And then we let people go to the thrift store. They pick out what they would like. There. And then when they're getting ready to exit and they need to outfit an apartment or a home or whatever, they get an exit voucher and they can go get those items as well. So sheets, towels, curtains, plates, all those kinds of things a lot of the time are going to clients, which is really great. And so one of the reasons we were excited about moving to the new building is because it's bigger and we'll be able to sell furniture, which we have not had room for before. So we're really hoping for the couches in the dining room tables,
Yeah.
and those kinds of things. It wouldn't be great for our clients and for our community as well. So
the fashion show supports you.
is that the other
the
10%?
thrift store?
Yeah.
What about, how else can people donate, or how else can we support you?
Yeah. So yes, we welcome donations, and actually the Safe House, because it's a domestic violence agency, we qualify for the Missouri Domestic Violence Tax Credit. It's a 70% tax credit. So if you donate $100, you get $70 back as a tax credit against your Missouri state taxes.
Wow.
And it's like a 2-page, you sign it and you attach your canceled check to it and send it back to us.
Does that work on self-employment income? Because that
Yes,
tends to be the one they never
There you go.
back down. Does it?
Good question.
That is a great question.
Okay, we'll find out.
We'll find
Try
out.
to put it at the bottom.
Yes. But it's
But that's amazing.
Yeah,
Instead of
and
giving
there's
it to the
no-
government.
Yes.
Give it to you.
exactly. I mean, you might.
I'll
as well
write a
get
check
it
right
back.
now.
Exactly.
Yes, you might as well get it back. So there's, you can actually donate like $75,000 a year and get $50,000 back. And that,
Perfect.
Yeah, $50,000 is the cap per person, but we don't have a limit, so we can give those tax credits to anybody who donates. So
Nice.
so
That's awesome.
We really, so between between Vintage Now and then just the fundraising that we do, that accounts for the other 10 to 15% of our budget. So it's a significant amount.
Nice.
We really do appreciate our community support. And the other thing that people do is they do drives for us where they collect like cleaning supplies, hygiene items. You can imagine in a shelter that sometimes has 32 people in it, how many like tampons we need. Just going to be honest. And so, those kinds of things, like we hardly buy any of that. Like the community comes together and helps us with that so much. So to keep our facilities clean and to keep our folks outfitted with what they need, shampoo and soap and all those kinds of things, we're providing that because the community is providing it to us.
So if someone wanted to donate those things, do we bring those to the thrift store?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the thrift store and our outreach office are together in the same building, and either way, if you can say this is for the shelter, the thrift store will take it and set it aside for them. And yes.
I'm just thinking about local businesses too. Like I owned a restaurant. I remember these cups exactly. We had too many of them and we never used them again. And
Yeah.
things like that you could
Yeah.
just bring down.
Bring
And
to us.
nice.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, there's virtually nothing that we can't use or make use of.
Exactly. Especially when somebody's starting over.
Yes.
That's a financial
Oh,
burden.
yeah.
I mean,
Very overwhelming.
anybody, if you have to redo one room, is a
Right.
huge financial burden. So I absolutely.
Yep.
So tell everybody where we can find you.
So we are online at www.cmosafehouse.org. We are, you can call us 24 hours a day at 573-651-1614. CMO Safe House will pretty much find us on all social media. So, we do as much as we can to keep those going. And we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. We welcome walk-ins. You don't have to have an appointment. If you need help, just, come in. Or if you have something that you'd like to donate or drop off, you can just come in too. So
Nice. Thanks for being here. I mean, this was
Thank you so
very
much.
informational and much needed.
thank you. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we need all the help we can get to spread the word and to let people know that there is help for them. If they feel like they're all alone, they're not. And so we want to help. And we really appreciate you guys letting us come and share.
Absolutely.
Thanks for doing what you do.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we always end this with a nice little upbeat bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode from Show Me the Mommy podcast. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Show Me the Mommy podcast. You can keep up to date with every episode we release and new guests that are coming our way. See you guys soon.